All right, I'm at the point of working on Dorothy's dress, and I'm going to add some tulle underneath it because the bottom of the dress isn't going to be attached, just the sides. So I have some tulle that I found at Hobby Lobby. It's 3 inches wide, and I'm going to cut a piece that's about 10 inches long. So once I have my piece cut, it's the right length because I want it to just hang underneath the dress just a little bit. So what I do is I start making little pleats. And I'll use either some clips or I'll use some pins to hold the little pleats. And I want it to be like A-line because the waist is so small up there. So I just kind of keep making little pleats, adding in little pins, and when I get it all pleated at the top, then I kind of like hold it up to the dress to see if it's where I want it. And as you see, I've already made a piece. So I've left the pins in the back here, and I already attached the little apron because I want to hide the stitches behind the apron where I attach the tulle. And so I don't need these pins anymore, so I'll take those out. So now when I attach her dress to the stocking, I'm going to make sure that I tuck in these sides, and then I'll stitch the edge of the dress. So tuck that tulle in, and since I've already attached it to the dress at the top, it's not going to go anywhere. And so I'm going to stitch down the sides here, and then as I finish, if I decide I want to trim it, I'll trim it a little bit. But as I stitch, it'll make the dress, you know, puff out a little bit, and you'll see the tulle underneath. I'll probably trim just a little bit when I'm finished, just to make it just under the dress. But that's how I do the tulle. Okay, I'm ready to start doing Dorothy's hair. The instructions say you need 5 yards of gold floss. When you take your floss out of the kit, you have 1 yard strands. So we want 5 yards of the gold. So they're all at 36 inches, and I have 5 here. And we need them to be all 9 inches. So since this is 36 inches long, we can cut them in half, and then cut them in half again, and we have 5 yards. They're all 9 inches long. So next, it helps to watch your instructions and follow it step by step. So we did the 5 yards gold floss, we cut them into 9-inch segments. Now, I've already done the head. You embroider the face first, then you attach the gold piece for the hair, and then you attach the back. So that part's done. Now we're gonna lay the segments side by side on top of her head. We're not gonna worry about the back because that's not gonna be seen. So get them as straight as you can, and in the center, you want to lay them flat. So you want to leave a space 3/8 of an inch from the start of her hair to the forehead. So we have that. So now it says you want to use 3 strands of gold to tack the segments down in the center of her head, so like a part. So I'm going to start right here in the front, and I'm coming up from the back of her head. You're not going to see your stitches because it's going to be attached. So kind of like right up from where the gold comes to a point here. Make a few stitches, and I'm doing little stitches catching all of the strands together. I'm kind of doing kind of like a split stitch because I'm coming up in my stitch that I just made, because I want to make sure that they're all attached securely. So I'm up to the top, so I'm going to kind of wrap that around the back, come back up through. So see, she has a little part here. I'm going to secure this. Alright, so this part's done. So she has her part. So we're going to bend the first two segments from each side to the center of the head to make her bangs. So we have two here and two here. So we're going to trim the bangs now. And it tells you 1/4 of an inch. A 1/4 of an inch is because that's what's done on the front cover on the model. If you want them longer, if you want them shorter, it doesn't matter. So I'm going to trim these. Here's her bangs. And then you can take your scissors or something and kind of separate them out. You can even tack them down if you want to. Either way. All right, so next what you're going to do is you're going to make braids on each side. So it helps to have something to hold your head down while you're making your braids. So just grab ends here, and it says here you're going to make a 1-inch braid. And again, you can make it longer or shorter, whichever. Separate these out. You can get the same amount of strands, you know, in your braids to make them even. So I think that it would help if we made a stitch down here. That way we know where to start the braid. So I'm going to make a stitch here, going all the way through to the back, and you can even these out. Spread them out along that gold. And you can even tack it down if you want to. So I made a stitch here. That way we know where to start her braid. So I'll do it again and tack it down in the back. Make a little knot to secure it. All right, I think that helps to have that there. So now we'll do the braid. I have this weight that I'm using to hold her head in place so I can do this braid. Make it kind of tight. I think that would look better. And the instructions say 1 inch, but if you want to go all the way down to the end, I don't think it matters any. Figure that's about 1 inch, so I'm going to end that right there. So then you want to, it says use 1 strand of gold floss and wrap around the end of the braid to secure it. I've got 2 strands here on my needle. And I'm going to kind of go through the braid, kind of loop my thread back through. I'm going to do this a couple times just to make sure. You can even wrap it around 2 or 3 times. Anything to get it in place. You don't want the end to come undone. So this should hold it. So in the instructions, it says to make cording for her to have a bow at the end. So the cording, it says make 2 strands of red floss 8 inches long and make a 4-inch piece of cording and not the ends. And then it says to make a bow. So you can use cording, but I decided to use some silk ribbon, and on the ends I used my fray check and I just dabbed the ends just a little bit so they don't you know, fray and the ribbon doesn't come apart. And to make little bows, I just fold the bow, fold the ends in, kind of make something that looks good for a bow. And then I'll put a stitch in it to hold it. So I come up from the back and then I'll go over the top around to the back. And then I'll do that at the bottom. I'll go around and come up. This secures your loops and makes your tails stick out. So that's a pretty good looking little bow right there. And now you can trim the ends. If you don't go all the way down to the end of your hair piece here, trim your ends. I'm gonna leave these a little bit long, kind of like they did on here. It's kind of long, so I'm gonna cut that off. Have some sharp scissors to do that so you get them all at once. So now for the bow. I'm just gonna lay the bow on the end of her braid. And do a couple stitches to attach it and cover up the gold floss that I used at the end. You could even add a little sequin or bead in there too if you wanted. I'll go around the back, make a nice little knot. If you wanted to hold that in place, just take a little dot of the fray check and that'll help hold that knot there too so it doesn't come off. So I'm going to finish up the other braid, the other side. But basically here is how you do her braids and make a little bow.